Hi everyone, Mark and Code here for a brand new episode of our special edition Lore of the Universal Century. Today we're going to the 1 Year War era and attempt to answer a particular question, which is... Yep, in this video we're going to explore all the variants of Matilda's yellow flying steed, how much they differ from the regular model, when did they appear, and extract every bit of mechanical knowledge we have on them so far. But let's start by the beginning. What is the Medea-class? A large VTOL aircraft used by the Earth Federation forces, the Medea was a mass-production aerial transport, serving as the backbone of the Earth Federation Air Forces Supply Corps for the entirety of the 1 Year War. A design predating the start of the 1 Year War altogether, the Medea was a large type of plane specially meant for frontline resupply, reaching stranded or bogged down units in the most inhospitable locations, delivering them massive amounts of material to enable them to continue the fight. To achieve this role as a transporter, the Medea adopted extremely large dimensions for an airplane, with a length of 45 meters and a total wingspan of nearly 68 meters, making it the largest air asset on both sides of the conflict, save for Xion's Gao-class attack carriers. These massive dimensions were optimized by the Medea ditching the idea of a traditional cargo bay, instead introducing a fully detachable transport container capable of carrying around 160 tons of supplies, and later as many as 4 mobile suits at the same time. Thanks to this gimmick, the Medea could, in emergency scenarios, just drop the container and turn away to retreat, rather than being forced to land at all costs to deliver the supplies. Now, as we said before, the Medea was also designed as a capable courier ship, with the class introducing a total of 6 jet engines as its primary avionics, 4 on its center body and 1 under each wing. Thanks to these engines, the Medea was able to reach speeds close to Mach 0.82, making it a subsonic vessel, yes, but with a decent cruising range. Ice on the cake for the Medea, the class introduced a very fancy feature, a total of 5 VTOL rotors, enabling the Medea not only to achieve some degree of stationary flight, like a copter, but also to perform vertical landings and takeoffs. Thanks to these rotors, the Medea was fully freed from the need of any airstrip, enabling the plane to reach battalions bogged down in places inaccessible by railways, roads or sea, a feature that would, down the line, keep the Medea relevant even after the arrival of the Garuda-class megaplanes that phased out many of the 1 Year War air assets by the mid-UC-80s. Now, despite this amazing capacity as a transporter, the Medea was far from being a perfect design, remaining very vulnerable to a lot of external factors. First of all, the Medea's subsonic nature rendered it vulnerable not only to Xion's hypersonic fighters, such as the DOP and its relatives, but later on mobile suit mounted on Dodai subflight systems as well, forcing the Medea to either be escorted by proper aircrafts or fly in formations of 3, covering each other's in an attempt to dissuade attackers. Speaking of covering, the Medea actually introduced a light defensive arsenal, notably a pair of retractable machine gun turrets for anti-air suppressive fire, as well as a pair of flare launchers to flash enemies. A decent combination, yes, but however far insufficient to protect the Medea from enemy fighters or mobile suits. Nonetheless, the Medea would still perform admirably during the totality of the 1 Year War, proving countless times its worth by pushing deep into enemy territory to resupply allies or reach lost battalions, with one Medea-based unit, the 136th Regiment led by Lieutenant Matilda Adjan, being the only reason the White Base Corps was able to last all that long in Xion-controlled territory. After the end of the 1 Year War, the Medea gradually lost its importance as the key Federation air asset, being notably overshadowed by the appearance of the massive Garuda-class megaplanes, but also one of its own 1 Year War variants, the C-88 version, that took its place as a standard transport. Nonetheless, the Medea VTOL abilities, absent in both Garuda and C-88, would keep the whole supply plane in service, with Medeas still in service as late as the UC-90s, proving themselves reliable and effective air assets. But that's enough setting for today, let's get to our variants. Let's first start our list with a minor yet still obscure and of course super interesting variation of the Medea-class, the actual predecessor of it, the Type C-85 Medea. A large aircraft belonging to the older generation of transport planes that predated the Medea, the Type C-85 was the direct predecessor to the Medea, thus making the regular Medea either the Type C-86 or Type C-87 of the Medea line. Said to be almost totally identical to the regular Medea, the Type C-85 is described as a twin fuselage transport airplane, with one of its core features being the absence of any VTOL abilities, thus lacking the various rotors seen in the regular Medea. With the absence of these rotors, the Type C-85 totally lacked vertical landing and takeoff abilities, but apparently featured better avionics, with more numerous jet engines under its wings. This is actually very interesting, especially when we consider the variants we are going to cover later, with the infamous C-88 also lacking that feature, meaning that if the Type C-85 and C-88 were both non-VTOL airplanes, the Medea was the ugly duckling of the line. What this implies is that the rotors of the Medea were an experimental add-on in the proper model, but that this feature was largely absent from its predecessor and successor, meaning that the Medea line was more of a line of cargo planes rather than hybrid VTOL cargo ships. Now, if you're wondering about the total absence of proper design for the C-85, it is because that thing is exclusive to the Mobile Suit Gundam Unicorn novel, being introduced midway through the story during the Earth arc. There, the C-85 is used to move Minerva to the Garuda, with the aerial transport remaining tethered to the megaplane up until the first resonance between Unicorn units, resulting in the cable being destroyed and the C-85 being untowed. Apparently, some designs exist for it in the Unicorn bande dessinée, but I have not been able to find that specific chapter. And of predecessor, let's now present a much more important successor to the Medea. Let's move to a far more prominent and famous Medea variant. This time, I'm going to cover its direct successor, the Medea Late type, also known as the Type C-88. A medium-sized aerial transport of dimensions comparable to its predecessor, the C-88 was an aircraft allegedly designed and first produced during the One-Year War itself, conceptualized as a far more advanced Medea variant and a more rounded courier transport altogether. First and foremost, the C-88 adopted more traditional aerodynamic shapes for its fuselage, resembling more a standard cargo plane than the regular Medea, changes adopted to make the design more aerodynamic, removing most of the Medea's experimental features for the sake of a more production-friendly airplane. The Medea's detachable container, one of its key selling points and best gimmicks, was completely ditched in the Type C-88, with the container being now fused to the plane itself, only capable of transporting up to 2 mobile suits at the same time, so around 80 tons of payload, nearly half of what the Medea was capable of. Unlike the Medea's original container, which only opened from rear hatches, the one from the C-88 was also able to deploy material through 2 frontal hatches, enabling faster delivery of supplies compared to its predecessor. Now, this reduced transport capacity was introduced for a particular reason, with the Type C-88 ditching the entire VTOL aspect the Medea had introduced, instead focusing on being a pure transport cargo plane with regular avionics only. To fulfill this, the Type C-88 ditched the 5 VTOL rotors of its predecessor, instead introducing a total of 8 jet engines, 4 on its top, like the regular Medea, and 2 under each wing. This higher number of engines, coupled with reduced weight due to fewer supplies transported, resulted in a much nimbler aerial transport than its predecessor, likely making the C-88 a supersonic cargo plane, going over Mach 1. Thanks to this speed, the Type C-88 survivability greatly increased as a result, as it could now escape the enemy instead of being bogged down by its lower speed. In addition to that, the Type C-88 also ditched the rather pitiful defenses of the Medea-class, removing the signal launcher and turrets, which were rather ineffective weapons. In their stead, the Type C-88 received an optional bomb bay, enabling it to be used as a carpet bomber to expand its tactical range. However, some games renderings suggest that some Type C-88s could equip additional defense turrets, as seen with the Slave Reef custom Medea-class, although this doesn't seem to be the norm for the Type C-88 class. Funnily enough, a sort of intermediate design between Medea and Type C-88 Medea has been presented in Kondo's Operation Troy manga, with a certain gunship Medea appearing there with features from both designs. Although the gunship resembles the Type C-88 more, with a more traditional fuselage, it remains a bit exotic like the regular Medea, and it seems to use the cargo bay of the C-88 while also lacking any rotors. However, that plane also features only 6 engines like the Medea-class, as well as 2 machine gun turrets, thus making it a sort of mix between the two, and a good candidate to be the Type C-87 that branched between the Type C-86 Medea, the normal one, and the later Type C-88. In terms of paint scheme, the Type C-88 has been seen in a great variety of colors, going from Arctic blue paint schemes in War in the Pocket, the Slave Ref unit colors in Missing Link, but also more traditional grey colors later on, and of course, the original Medea paint scheme as seen in Stardust Memory. Like the normal Medea, the Type C-88 would remain in service well after the 1-year war, although it would rise to prominence compared to its predecessor, becoming the mainstay cargo transport for troops and mobile suits in situations that didn't require the use of the larger Garuda-class megaplanes. By the UC-90s, the Type C-88 was still in use, with at least one transport being seen departing the Cheyenne Air Force Base in the last episode of Unicorn. Although nothing can be confirmed so far, the Type C-88 would seemingly gradually evolve as the late UC progressed, eventually leading to different kinds of transport plane designs, such as the mini Garuda in use by the Shinri in the UC-130s, or even the transport type Ricard, itself based on the air control mobile armor Ricard. Enough C-88, let's move those numbers up. Time to address another Medea variant, this time a very obscure model from the hellish depth of the gamebook Gihren Sortie Order. Let's bring out the Type C-130 Medea, also referred as the Flying Container. Another case similar to the Type C-85, the Type C-130 is a total mystery, with no depiction of it ever existing, the gamebook only presenting it as a crushed vessel, a larger version of the Medea-class. From the info collected there, the flying container is extremely similar to the regular Medea design rather than following the C-88, and would be 60 meters in length, a 1.3 increase in size, which would bring its wingspan to around 77 meters. Summed up, something similar to the Go class and the Uga Uga. Now, while the C-130 was never actually shown, a certain Medea variant has appeared since in a different material, more prominently in the very popular manga UC-0094 Across the Sky, a plane that could actually fit the specifications set for the Type C-130. See, Across the Sky features not one but multiple Medeas, showing the regular plane was still active in the mid-UC-90s, yet also introduced a standalone drastic redesign for one particular Medea, the one used by the protagonist team, the Fresburg Corps. This particular Medea, following the original design rather than the one of the C-88, is massively larger than its regular counterpart, with a much larger cargo bay, capable of holding around 4 mobile suits standing upright, so around 8 mobile suits in total. This plane also includes more spacious interiors with a mess hall and is supported by the use of 8 jet engines, 4 on each wing. That same model also seems to retain some anterior defenses, with at least 2 machine gun turrets being visible protecting its rear. Now, is this Medea the C-130 flying container? Well, not likely, since it seems to be a direct per 2 upscaling of the Medea rather than a per 1.31. And it is also referred simply as an old Medea by the crew of the ship. This particular Medea could, yes, be the Type C-130 or could otherwise be a locally modified variant crafted at the Mariana base to boost its performance. Either way, we will likely never know, unless someone decides to explore either of those concepts in the future. Before we end this video, I propose an epilogue to address the different alternative UC redesigns of the Medea that have spawned across the years, be it in the Origin continuity, the Thunderbolt continuity, or for today, even the what-ifs of the Gihren Grid series. Let's start with the Origin continuity because it's the one with the least interesting stuff. Unlike the GAU and a lot of vehicles that were greatly revamped in the Origin continuity, the Medea remained pretty much the same, keeping its shapes, number of engines, thrusters, and overall dimensions. If something is great, there's no need to change it, right? Well, wrong, since the Thunderbolt continuity was instead able to keep the original beautiful Medea design while introducing a slight uncooladon on its wings. The engines underneath the wings were removed in favor of an emergency catapult system, enabling the Thunderbolt Medea to detach core fighters mid-flight, which could then transform and hunt down attacking airplanes as defensive interceptors. With all my gripes with the Thunderbolt continuity, this is genuinely a simple yet insane improvement for the Medea design, and something that could theoretically have been implemented in mainline UC, as we do see core fighters being deployed on the gravity front during Operation Odessa. Finally, the Gihren Grid games also introduce a simple yet very charming concept for the Medea. Blue retrofitted Gihren captured Medeas, showing that Gihren would actually adopt the transport design as soon as their triumph over the Earth Federation in the What If Gihren won. This is not only charming and proof that the Medea is genuinely excellent, otherwise why would your enemies adopt it, but considering Gihren other Earth asset alternatives, the Fat Uncle and the Gao, well, this Gihren winning ending kind of makes sense. Before this video concludes, I just want to point out that there's a variant I didn't address, the Weldea-class transport from Pilotalk's Nighthawks, which is a larger version of the Medea-class with 2 battle barge containers, serving as the mothership of the Nighthawks. Long story short, the Nighthawks are a near all-female Federation squad made of early artificial and drugged-up cyber new types, who also serve as a sort of sexual relief squadron and use the prototypes of the V3 project. Yay! Yikes! Anyway, the Weldea has a total mobile suit transport capacity of around 5 mobile suits, and ends up being mistaken for the Trojan Horse, aka the White Base, which end up down the line causing a lot of troubles for the Nighthawks, which eventually result in the plane being sunk by Gihren. Now, before you complain about the lack of visuals, I actually owned a numeric copy of the 4 early chapters of Nighthawks from Cyber Comics in the Gundam Generation magazines, copies that I lost when my computer had a wonderful blue screen event back in May. At the moment I am trying to buy again a physical copy, so we'll probably cover the manga when I do. With this video comes to an end. Mark and Code out.
But who will survive?